Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. It was supposed to be one of our harmless late-night drives, the kind we took when the air in our apartment got too thick with silence or tension, when sleep felt like a distant rumor and the city felt like it was choking us. Harper and I had a thing for aimless drives, especially after midnight when Weston felt less like a college town full of vape smoke and Red Bull, and more like a forgotten outpost waiting to disappear into the trees. Harper, my fiancée, though we rarely used the word, had this way of needing escape more than most. She was raised in foster homes, bounced around the state like a parcel no one wanted to claim. Maybe that's why she was always trying to outrun something, always scanning the horizon for a way out. I loved her for it even when it made no sense, especially then. We never packed bags. That night, like all the others, we just filled a thermos with coffee, threw on hoodies, and pointed the car toward nowhere. Clarion Road was always our start, a familiar artery out of Weston's mess of chain restaurants and back alley tattoo shops. But beyond that, we let the roads choose. That night was early November, the kind of cold that crept under your clothes and stayed. Rain had been falling in thin, spiteful needles since evening, just enough to blur the world into watercolors and smear the edges of things. We'd left the apartment around 11:30 after an argument with Harper's sister about Thanksgiving plans. Harper had slammed the fridge, muttering something about not doing another year of fake smiles and forced prayers. She was barefoot on the kitchen tile, her auburn hair twisted into a beanie like it owed her money. "I just need to get out of the city," she'd snapped. And that was it. We were in the car. We drove north for about an hour, the rain streaking across the windshield like veins. Harper had her boots up on the dash, fingers flipping through Spotify, then Google Maps, then back again. Her breath fogged the window. "Where the hell are we?" she muttered, squinting at her phone. "It says we're near Barrett County. That can't be right. We should have hit Route 88 by now." Barrett County. The name sat wrong in my mouth, a place more rumor than location. I'd heard about it growing up, how people ended up on those roads and turned around hours later with stories that didn't quite add up. Nothing concrete, just off. The pavement beneath us cracked and thinned until it wasn't really pavement anymore. More like gravel slush. I slowed the car, tires crunching over mud and stone. Tree branches arched over the road like ribs, thick and dark, and the headlights barely pierced the mist. "You think we missed a turn?" I asked, trying to sound casual. My grip on the wheel betrayed me. Harper didn't answer at first. She was chewing on the sleeve of her hoodie, eyes scanning the woods like something might blink back. "No, I don't think so, but doesn't it feel like, I don't know, like we should have hit a crossroad or something by now?" She was right. We hadn't passed another car in almost an hour. No streetlights, no signs, just endless dark. Then, like a mirage, a narrow road forked off to the right. No sign, no name. Just a strip of blacktop decaying into the trees. I turned down it without thinking. "Careful," Harper murmured, bracing herself against the door as the branches clawed at the sides of the car, brittle fingers scratching at metal. The road climbed slowly, a winding ascent through thick, wet trees. Then, like stepping through a curtain, the woods pulled back. We rolled into a clearing, and there it was. The house. Colonial style, 2 stories, old as hell, and leaning just slightly to one side like it had been caught mid-sigh. No lights, no driveway. Just sitting there all wrong, like it had been dropped from the sky and left to rot. It was drunk on decay. That house, like it had been left to rot and got drunk off its own ruin. The siding was ripped away in places, windows either shattered or nailed shut with rotting plywood. The porch sagged under its own weight, nails straining like teeth in old gums. No lights, no movement, nothing except, "There's cats," Harper whispered, her voice suddenly thin and trembling. "Holy shit, there's so many of them." She wasn't exaggerating. There had to be at least 20, maybe more. Their sleek bodies slithered through the weeds and rusted-out car parts, weaving in and out of garbage piles like shadows with eyes. Glowing eyes, green, orange, white, all reflecting the headlights like marbles filled with fire. They didn't blink right, or maybe they didn't blink at all. Just stared. Wrong. The yard looked like a scrapyard that had given up. Tires were half buried in mud, coils of tangled wire coiled like snakes, broken tools rusted to the point of becoming part of the soil. An old pickup truck sat at the edge of the clearing, collapsed against a tree, its front fender gone, paint peeled to metal, the insides picked apart by time. Harper slapped my arm, her fingers frantic. Turn around, Eli, right now." Then, crack. Something hit the windshield. Hard, not a branch. Something sharp. I flinched. Harper screamed. "What the hell was that?" I couldn't answer. My eyes were locked on the spreading fracture in the glass, thin as a hairline but unmistakably growing. My stomach coiled. Then I saw him. A man stepped out of the tree line. Tall, maybe 6'3" or more, but hunched, as if his body was too tired to carry itself. He dragged a shovel behind him, the metal scraping wet dirt. His coat was soaked through, hanging in folds like an old tarp. Navy blue, heavy, ancient. His beard was matted and wild, filled with leaves. His eyes were locked on us but empty, and then the porch creaked. A woman stepped out of the house like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She didn't move right. Not like a person. More like something that had learned to act human but only got about halfway there. Her hair was long, gray, tangled like rope pulled from a well. Her hands were what I noticed first. Dark, stained, not with dirt but something that looked deeper. Like blood, maybe, or tar. Something that soaked in. She kept rubbing her palms against the fabric of her skirt, slow and rhythmic, like she was trying to wipe away something that would never come off. Her eyes, they were lost in the shadow just beyond the reach of the headlights. But she saw us. I felt it. We both did. The cats scattered like they knew something bad was about to happen. Harper started hitting the door lock button over and over, her hand shaking. "Go, Eli. Go!" I slammed the Mazda into reverse. The tires jumped and bounced over metal and roots, fishtailing wildly as I backed down the narrow road. Trees reached in from both sides, and every second I thought we'd clip one and get stuck. But we didn't breathe. Not really. Until the gravel crunched beneath us again, and we were back on the main stretch. 15 minutes later, the trees began to thin. "Jesus Christ," Harper whispered. She was crying, curled up in the passenger seat, knees pulled tight to her chest. "What was that place?" "I don't know," I said. "I don't want to know." But something gnawed at me, and I glanced in the rear view. Headlights. Just one pair. Close. "Are they following us?" I asked, hearing my own voice shake. Harper sat up fast, wiping her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "That's the truck," she said, pointing. "That's the fucking truck. Same grill, same rust, same busted fender. Eli, it's them." I turned. They turned. Another road. They followed. A third. Still behind us. I hit 80 on a road slick with rain and barely meant for 45. Every bump in the asphalt sent panic through my chest. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of losing that truck. Finally, we hit a town. Mosswood. Not home, but real. It had lights, buildings, people. A gas station, still open. I skidded into the lot, threw the car into park, and jumped out like I needed gas even though the tank was half full, anything to not look like we were running. The truck rolled by slow, real slow. The driver's head never turned, but I felt him watching, felt it like a draft on the back of my neck. We waited 20 minutes before leaving. I bought a protein bar. Harper grabbed a bag of chips she never opened. She just stared at them the whole ride back. That drive home to Weston was the longest I've ever had. Every pair of headlights behind us made my stomach knot. Every turn felt like it might lead us right back to them. When we finally pulled into the apartment lot, it was 3:40 a.m. Harper sat in the shower for over an hour, fully dressed, water scalding. I stayed on the bed staring at the cracked corner of the windshield, thinking about the woman's hands, the way she rubbed them like she was trying to remember what they felt like once, or trying to forget. We never went on a night drive again, and I still check my rearview mirror every single time I pull out of the lot, just in case. I didn't even want ice cream that night. It was one of those suffocating southern evenings where the heat clung to your skin like old guilt. The kind of night where every breath felt thick and your shirt stuck to your back the moment you moved. Our barracks air conditioning wheezed like it was on life support, barely keeping the room livable. I had just bombed my electronic systems exam. 2 solid weeks of cramming flushed straight down the drain. I felt stupid, irritable, and trapped. The sort of mood where even walking into a wall sounded better than sitting in your own failure. It was late April. I was 19, about to turn 20 in a couple weeks, stationed at a Navy tech school about half an hour outside some nowhere town called Granville, South Carolina. That kind of town where everything felt just far enough to make walking a pain, but not far enough to keep you from trying when the boredom hit. I didn't have a car, but Caleb did. Or rather, he had access. Caleb was this easygoing Georgia kid who somehow made flunking feel like a shared inside joke instead of a personal disaster. His buddy Mason was the one with the wheels, though. Mason was something else. Stringy, twitchy energy, always talking fast like he was trying to outrun some thought in his own head. A Brooklyn transplant with a beat-up silver Tacoma and a suspicious number of connections. I wouldn't call him a friend. More like a necessity with gas money. That night, when I muttered, "Man, I could really use a milkshake or something cold," I wasn't expecting anything, just venting into the hot air. But Mason caught it, raised one eyebrow and smirked. "Maple Creamery," Caleb chimed in, grinning. "Best damn butter pecan this side of the county. Open late, too." "Let's roll," Mason said. That was it. No plan, no hesitation. Just the stupid, impulsive decision that starts every horror story. By 10:14 p.m., we were packed into Mason's Tacoma. I was squished in the back, knees to chest, hand dangling out the window chasing what little breeze there was. The truck smelled like stale fries, body spray, and something vaguely chemical I didn't want to think about. The dash lit up dull blue as we pulled onto the road. Maple Creamery turned out to be one of those weird, neon-lit roadside joints with hand-painted signs, a counter that stuck to your elbows, and 80s rock crackling through a dusty radio. I got a double scoop of butter pecan in a waffle cone. It melted too fast, ran down my fingers before I could keep up. We sat out front on the curb, licking our cones, laughing at how each of us flunked the same test in our own dumb way. For a minute, it was just normal, easy. No grades, no ranks, no buzz-cut instructors barking at us, just 3 guys enjoying a warm night and bad jokes. Then we got back in the truck. "All right," Caleb said, checking his phone. "Back down 6, hang a left at Bellwood." "Hold up," Mason cut in, sliding the key in. "I got a better way. Shortcut, scenic, way faster." Caleb and I exchanged a look. Not quite doubt, not quite trust, just that unspoken, "You sure?" that hangs in the air before things go sideways. Mason just flashed a grin like he had a trick up his sleeve. "It's chill, you'll see." That should have been red flag number 1, and we ignored it. By 11:02, we were still driving. The hum of the highway had faded. So had the streetlights. Whatever Mason's shortcut was, it sure as hell wasn't on any map. He'd taken a turn off 6 about 15 minutes back, mumbling something about connecting to Briar's Cross. But now it was just black pine forest, the cracked road rolling endlessly ahead of us in Mason's high beams. No signs, no houses, no other cars, just trees, endless leaning trees. The laughter from earlier had drained out of the cab. I stared at the back of Mason's head, his posture too relaxed for the growing tension in my gut. That feeling you get, I muttered, when your phone's got no bars and you realize you're in the middle of nowhere. Caleb leaned forward, squinting out the windshield. Where the hell are we? Almost there, Mason said. Calm, too calm, like we weren't already off the edge of familiar. Just relax, he added. It's a loopback. The thing is, loops only work when they bring you back to something you recognize. But nothing about that road felt like it had an end. I've been this way before, Mason muttered, eyes narrowing at the tree line. Doesn't look like you have, I whispered under my breath, just loud enough for Caleb to catch it. He shot me a look, but didn't say anything. The truck bumped along in silence for a moment, the tires crunching gravel. Then Mason broke it. Hang on, I gotta piss. Dude, Caleb snapped, sitting up straighter. Just pull over. You're not hiking into the woods. Yeah, I will. I'm not about to get clipped by someone barreling down this road. There hasn't been a damn car in 20 minutes, I said, dry as dust. But Mason was already slowing down, scanning the sides of the road like he was picking out a campsite. Then he turned the wheel and eased the truck onto a narrow dirt path, nearly hidden between the trees. That was red flag number 2. And just like the first, we ignored it. 11:19 p.m. I remember the exact second the Tacoma crossed the tree line. The forest swallowed us whole. No moonlight, no stars, just black. The headlights hit twisted underbrush and crooked pine trunks. The dirt road was barely wide enough for the truck and riddled with ruts. This wasn't a road. It was a trail for hunters or something, not where you took joyrides after dark. Dude, seriously, Caleb said, his voice sharper now. Turn around. This is someone's property. People around here don't like strangers. You're gonna get us shot. Relax, Mason muttered, still creeping forward. I'm just getting off the main road, just for a minute. My stomach nodded. Something felt wrong. Not just bad decision wrong. Wrong. Instinctual. Ancient. The kind of wrong that made the hairs on your arms lift before your brain could make sense of it. Then we saw it. 11:02 p.m. A fire, but not a campfire. This was a bonfire. Huge and alive, flames licking 20 feet into the air. It roared in a small clearing ahead, its orange glow pulsing through the trees like a heartbeat. Too big for cooking, too big for warmth. This was either celebration or cremation. Caleb leaned forward and whispered, Nope, back up, now. I was already moving. I pushed up between the seats, trying to get a better look. Then I froze. There were people, figures, moving around the fire. Slowly, deliberately, and others, stepping out from the trees behind us. They weren't running. They weren't shouting. They were just walking, closing in, silent. Shapes at first, then more. Pale, thin silhouettes emerging from the woods on both sides. No sounds but the fire and the crunch of dirt under dozens of feet. What the? I started. Mason sat frozen in the driver's seat, eyes locked on the flames, mouth parted like he was trying to speak but forgot how. Go! I shouted, slamming my palm into his shoulder. Reverse. Now. Nothing. Caleb didn't wait. He yanked his backpack open and pulled out the heavy-duty flashlight he always kept in it. Navy issue. He clicked it on and started sweeping the beam around us. The light caught one of them to the right. It didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't raise a hand, just kept walking. Mason! Caleb barked. Back up! They'll move! Finally, Mason twitched like someone unplugged him from a nightmare. He gripped the gear stick, teeth clenched, and slid us into reverse. The truck groaned as it began inching backward. I crawled over the seat and locked all 4 doors, slammed the back window shut and rolled up mine. Then I just sat there, heart slamming against my ribs, breath catching in my throat. Caleb's flashlight beam swept behind us. He wasn't saying anything, just staring. Then he murmured something almost too low to hear. They don't have faces. I whipped my head around. What? He didn't respond, just kept shining the light. I looked, just for a second. Figures, yes, moving, still coming toward us, but no eyes, no nose, no mouths, just pale, stretched skin, smooth where faces should be. Unnatural, like someone forgot the last step of building a person. The flashlight flickered once, then the crowd parted. Mason didn't wait for a cue. He hit the gas. The tires spun, kicked up dirt, then caught. The truck lurched backward hard, branches scraping the sides, pine needles slapping the windshield. We shot out of the trees like the forest spat us out. Back on the road, back under the stars. No one spoke. 3 a.m. We rolled into the base, not a word between us. Mason didn't take us back to our building. He pulled into the farthest edge of the parking lot, engine still running. Just sat there staring at the dash. I opened the door first. The slam echoed louder than it should have. Caleb followed. But before I could step away, he stopped me. "I saw them," he said quietly. "Up close, I wasn't kidding." "I know," I replied. And I did. There was nothing else to say. Mason never brought it up again. None of us did. We stopped going out at night. No more milkshake runs. No more late drives. We drifted apart. Something out there wasn't right. Whatever it was, whatever we almost stumbled into, it saw us, all of us. And until now, I never told a soul outside that truck what happened that night. I used to think I was tough, someone who didn't scare easy. You work enough night shifts and the weirdness becomes background noise. Either you get used to it or you quit. Me? I chose numb. For the past 3 years, I've worked the graveyard prep shift at a 24-hour distribution center just outside Linwood, a small, suffocating warehouse town east of Raleigh. I always leave my place around 3:15 a.m., religiously. I live alone in a cramped second-floor apartment in Brookale, about 30 minutes out if you know the back roads, and I do. Every bump, every bend, every flickering street lamp like the back of my hand. Lately, though, construction and busted-up asphalt have forced me to stick to one route, Hollow Creek Drive. 2 lanes, mostly empty, hemmed in by tired-looking subdivisions, rusted chain-link fences, and the occasional porch light buzzing like it's begging for death. It was this morning, technically, that it happened. I had my usual podcast playing. Some true crime episode about a woman who vanished from her apartment, stove left on, cat still inside. Creepy in hindsight. I glanced at the dash, 3:32 a.m., right as I passed that hideous concrete sign for Crestwood Estates, the one with moss growing out of the cracks like veins. I hadn't had my coffee yet, and my stomach was already doing that hollow twist. Hunger? Probably. Maybe caffeine withdrawal. My chest felt tight too, but that's just normal these days. Anxiety's been riding shotgun for years. I cracked the window just a sliver. The air was cold, sharp, burned the edge off my nerves. I had just passed Ridge Hill Avenue, one of those sleepy little turnoffs where every house has motion lights and cheap garden gnomes, when I saw him. He came out of nowhere. 1 second the road was empty. The next, a guy sprinted straight into my lane like he was chasing a bus that wasn't there. I swerved hard, tires screaming, slammed the brakes so fast my bag of trail mix hit the floor. My heart slammed into my ribs. I missed him, barely. A foot, maybe less. He looked frantic. Late 30s, wiry build, pale as hell. His black hair was matted to his forehead, and his green eyes, God, they caught my headlights like a deer's. He wore a camo jacket that looked 2 sizes too big, and dirt-smeared jeans like he'd just crawled out of the woods. He staggered toward my driver's side window, breathing like he'd been running for miles. I don't know why I didn't drive off. My hand even locked the doors on instinct. But I didn't move. That's what messes me up most now. I should have driven off. Instead, I rolled the window down just enough for air. The car stayed in drive, my foot hard on the brake. "You all right?" I asked. My voice was calm, too calm. Fake calm. He looked behind him, like he was expecting something or someone to follow. Then back at me. His voice was broken, like it had been scraped raw. "Please," he said. "I need help. I don't know where else to go. It killed my dog." My stomach dropped. "What?" "It tore her apart," he choked, pointing back toward the dark subdivision behind him. "Right outside my house, 2 blocks that way. I thought it was a coyote at first, but then I saw this guy. He had a knife, he came at me, I ran. I didn't answer right away. My eyes scanned him. Really scanned him now. Something didn't sit right. If his dog had been ripped apart, where was the blood? His clothes were too clean, his jacket spotless. Jeans had some road dust, but no tears, no blood. Not even a paw print. "You said you picked up your dog's remains," I said slowly, trying to piece it together. "But there's nothing on you, no blood, no fur, nothing." That's when he changed. Just like that. The shaking stopped. His body went still, almost statuesque. His breathing flattened. His eyes didn't blink, didn't move. And the road? It went dead quiet. My podcast had cut out. Engine hum vanished. The only sound was my breath, and even that felt too loud. He leaned in. Not fast. Slowly. Deliberately. Then he smiled. But not the kind of smile you give someone who's helping you. It was wrong. Twisted. Like a mask cracking open. His eyes darkened. No. Changed. Black. I swear to God, they turned black. "I was going to help you," he whispered. Then he laughed. Sharp. Too loud. Right in my face. Before I could react, his hand grabbed the door handle. I screamed, slammed my elbow into the window button, rolled it up as fast as I could, hit the gas with everything I had. Tires squealed. He slapped the window once. Open palm. Not a punch, just a touch. I didn't look back, didn't breathe until I hit the warehouse parking lot. And I didn't cry until the sun started to rise. I pulled into my usual spot, far back corner of the lot, right under the only lamp that never flickers. It hummed above me, casting a pool of steady yellow light over the hood of my car while my hands trembled against the steering wheel. I had 7 minutes left before my shift started, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I grabbed my phone and dialed Sam, my best friend since middle school. She's not a morning person, usually sleeps until 10, but I needed to hear someone familiar. Just her voice, straight to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. I thought about calling the cops, but what the hell would I even say? "Hi, yeah. A guy ran into the street at 3:30 a.m. and said something killed his dog, but then tried to get in my car." It didn't make sense even in my own head. It sounded like a bad dream you forget halfway through brushing your teeth. But I knew something was wrong with him. Deeply wrong. And I don't think he just happened to be out there at random. I think he waited for me. I sat in the car as long as I could, trying to get my chest to stop feeling like it was being crushed. But the fear had changed. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was dread. The kind that settles into your ribs like cement when you realize something already went wrong and you're just late catching up to it. Eventually, I had to go inside. I clocked in, did the work, loaded shipments, printed invoices, made a stupid joke about printer ink to the morning manager just to prove I still could. But I wasn't really there. My body moved, my voice worked, but my mind was caught in a loop. Rewinding to his face, his words, that voice. Too calm, too steady. "I was going to help you." When my shift ended, I couldn't stomach the idea of driving home alone. I cornered Terry in the break room, told him my headlights were misaligned and I didn't feel safe. It was a lie, but he didn't press. Just shrugged, climbed into his truck, and followed me all the way back to my apartment. Gave me a lazy wave before peeling off into the night. That night I barely slept. Every creak from the building, every gust of wind outside my window felt like it had intention. I peered through the blinds every 10 minutes like some paranoid suburban cliché. I parked in a different spot, reversed in, kept my keys by the door, turned off location sharing on my phone, something I hadn't done since I moved in. I slid the chain on the door, then dragged a chair underneath the knob, just in case. By the second night, I told myself I was being ridiculous. That maybe he was just high or delusional, some guy having a breakdown. That I had panicked and imagined the worst. Blew it out of proportion. Convinced myself I saw something that wasn't really there. But then, on the third day, I made the mistake of driving that road again. Same route, same houses, same cracked concrete sign. And there, right on the shoulder where he'd first appeared, was something new. A small, neat pile of 6 flat stones, stacked, deliberately, balanced like a cairn someone might leave at a grave. And on top of the rocks was a tiny white dog collar. No tag, just the collar. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just stared at it in my rearview mirror until it vanished behind me, swallowed by the dark. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't taken Hollow Creek Drive since. I go the long way now. 35 minutes instead of 30. More lights, more cars, less shadows. I even pushed my start time to 6 a.m. so I wouldn't be out during the dead hours. The hours when things like him are moving around. But I still think about him. About how fast he dropped the act, how cold his voice got. Like he'd been wearing someone else's skin until I questioned him, and then, just like that, it slipped. I was going to help you. I've tried to reason it away. I've told myself stories to explain what I saw. But deep down, I believe the truth. He wasn't looking for help. He wasn't running from something. He was hunting. And if I'd rolled down my window just a little further, if I'd believed him for even one more second, I might be the one people talk about in hushed tones on some podcast. And maybe I still will be. Because sometimes, just before the sun breaks the horizon, when the streets are silent and the sky's still holding on to the last of the night, I feel it. That tight pull in my stomach. That same knot. Like something out there remembers me. Like he's still waiting for me to forget. Him. I wasn't supposed to be on the road that late, but when you're 21, broke, and trying to dodge holiday traffic, you start making weird decisions. Finals had just wrapped up, and I was so damn ready to leave behind the gray cinderblock walls of campus housing and that thin mattress that had been messing up my back for months. So I packed up my beat-up Nissan hatchback with Red Bulls, gas station snacks, and half-folded laundry bags, and hit the road heading south. My name's Emily. Back in 2016, I was a junior studying environmental science at a state university in Indiana. My parents had just moved to some quiet little town in northern Alabama, so this was my first solo drive home, roughly 7 hours if traffic didn't screw me. That night it was just me, miles of open highway, and the sweet thought of crashing in my old bed by morning. The plan was easy: avoid the daytime madness, save gas by cruising at a steady pace, and maybe stop somewhere for a chocolate milkshake. I rolled out of campus around 5 p.m., just as the sun started leaking orange across the sky. By the time I hit Kentucky, it was creeping past midnight, and everything outside looked like velvet stretched across the world, black and still with the occasional flicker of a passing billboard or a half-lit rest stop. I was somewhere along Route 9, this long stretch of mostly empty highway snaking through southern farmland and forest. No streetlights, no cars for at least 20 minutes. Just me, the road, and my car stereo playing a mix of the Lumineers, Lord Huron, and Fleetwood Mac. It felt quiet in a comforting way, earned silence after the chaos of finals week. Until it didn't. I was stopped at this lonely red light on the edge of some place called Pine Hollow, fiddling with my phone trying to skip a song I'd heard too many times, when I noticed headlights in my rear view. Big, bright, close. It was an 18-wheeler, orange cab, loud engine, and it rolled up on me way too fast for an empty road like that. At first I brushed it off. Trucks run through the night all the time, especially along freight corridors like this. But something about the way it didn't slow down made my chest tighten. It kept coming, Fast. Too fast. Until it was practically kissing my bumper. I got nervous and flipped my turn signal, easing into the right lane to let it pass. But it didn't pass. Instead, it shifted lanes too, right behind me again. I felt a twist in my gut. I tapped the gas, sped up a little. So did it. When I switched lanes again, it followed. Now it was beside me. Not overtaking, not falling behind. Just cruising. Matching my speed. Matching me. Then this spotlight, one of those mounted ones on the truck's side mirror, snapped on out of nowhere. It aimed straight into my window, blinding. I yelped and jerked my eyes forward, hands gripping the wheel. The beam cut across my face, then slid to the passenger side and just stayed there. The inside of my car lit up like a stage, every corner of it exposed in stark, sterile white. My heart started pounding so loud I swear I couldn't hear the music anymore. My heart lurched. My mouth went bone dry. "What the hell?" I whispered, barely hearing myself over the hum of the engine. My fingers clamped tight around the steering wheel. Was he trying to get my attention? Did he think I had a flat or maybe a busted taillight? That didn't make sense. He'd been behind me a few minutes ago. If something was wrong with my car, he would have seen it then. And anyway, truckers don't do this. Not at midnight, not on empty highways, and definitely not to women driving alone in beat-up Nissans. I eased off the gas, hoping he'd pass me. He didn't. He slowed down too, perfectly matching my speed. My heart thudded. Then the spotlight snapped off. The truck glided smoothly in front of me, merging into my lane like it belonged there. His brake lights flickered once, not hard, just a tap, like he was testing me. I swallowed and slipped over into the right lane again, trying to take back control, trying to breathe and remind myself I was being dramatic. Maybe he was just screwing around. Maybe he'd keep driving. But he didn't. He followed, swung beside me again, closer this time. Then the spotlight burst to life, aimed dead into my car's interior. Everything was awash in harsh white. It was like being on stage, exposed and glowing in a theater of darkness. The music in the background faded to nothing, just a distant thrum. My hands went numb on the wheel. My chest fluttered, shallow breath catching. I didn't dare look at him. That was the first moment I felt it. Real fear, not just nerves. The kind of fear that wraps around your windpipe and whispers, "You're prey now." "Okay," I muttered to myself, knuckles white. "Okay, screw this." I stomped on the gas. The engine whined like a kicked dog, but the car responded. I hit 80, then 85. The truck stayed with me, pacing me. I pushed harder, 90, 95. The Nissan shook beneath me, the whole car humming in protest. But finally, the headlights in my rear view started to shrink, twin embers flickering out. The highway was straight, no turns, no exits, just asphalt and silence. I thought that was it. I was wrong. A minute later, less, I saw them again. The lights, bright, closer now. Too close. I looked in the mirror. My stomach flipped. He was back. And he wasn't playing anymore. The truck flew forward with a speed that made no sense for something that size. It closed the distance in seconds, pulled up beside me again, and this time, it veered. Not hard, just a little. Enough to make my tires skid to the left, just a whisper of contact. The spotlight flared on again, blinding and suffocating. My legs were useless. My chest felt like it was imploding. I was holding my breath so tight it hurt. I knew, if I didn't act now, something awful was going to happen. I remembered something my dad told me when I was 16, learning to drive. You don't outrun something bigger. You outthink it. So I braked. Hard. The truck surged past me, caught off guard. I yanked the wheel and ducked behind it, into the blind spot near the trailer's tail end, using its own bulk to shield me. I stuck there, heart hammering like it was trying to crack my ribs. That's when I saw it, a dimly lit exit ramp, the kind you almost miss even in daylight. The green sign was half burnt out, but I didn't care. I waited until the truck's cab passed the exit line. Then I jerked the wheel hard and flew down the ramp. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I passed a shuttered gas station, then a dark diner. Then, thank God, a 24-hour burger joint, lit up like salvation. The parking lot was empty. Neon lights buzzed like angry bees. I pulled in fast, parked sideways behind a dumpster for cover, and jumped out, shaking. My first thought, is something wrong with my car? I circled it twice. Tires looked fine. Lights worked. No leaks, no busted glass, no sign of anything. I stood under those humming yellow lights for what felt like forever. 10 minutes, 15, watching, waiting. The truck never came. Eventually, I went inside, ordered a black coffee I didn't want, just to stay busy. The cashier, some tired-looking guy who barely looked up, asked nothing. I asked if he'd seen a big orange semi pull in off the highway. He shook his head slowly. "Haven't seen a soul in half an hour," he mumbled. I sat at the window, staring at the road. Another 20 minutes. Still no truck. Finally, I got back in my car and drove slow, nerves raw, to the cheap hotel I'd reserved just a couple exits down. I checked in, double-locked the door, curled up in the middle of the bed, TV on low for comfort. I didn't sleep. Not really, and I never reported it. What would I even say? Hi, a truck chased me with a spotlight, nearly ran me off the road. No plates, no company name, nothing. But it happened. I know what I saw. I told my parents traffic held me up, told my friends I was just tired. I never drove that route again. And even now, years later, every time I see a big rig alone on a dark highway, my stomach knots up like it's bracing for impact. I still think about that spotlight, the way it searched through my car like it was looking for someone, or something, and I wonder what would have happened if I'd pulled over. It started like any other summer night. I was 18, freshly graduated, and damn near clawing at the walls of my childhood bedroom. I'd lived my whole life in Red Hollow, Georgia, the kind of tiny southern town where the gas station doubles as a diner, a gossip hub, and your only shot at a late-night snack. Main Street shut down at 8 sharp, and by 9, you could practically hear the crickets gossiping about your business. It wasn't hell, but it was close. No bars, no clubs, no diners glowing neon like in those road trip movies. If you wanted fun, you had to make it yourself. For me, that meant driving. I'd gas up, grab a Gatorade, maybe a cigarillo if I had a couple bucks, and just go. No map, no plan. Just my old Camry, some music on low, and the open road. If I was lucky, I'd see a deer and get my blood pumping. Most nights, it was uneventful, but it made me feel like I could breathe again. Especially on nights like this one, when the world felt heavy, like it was pressing a knee into my chest. It was a little past 1:30 a.m. when I slipped out the front door. My folks were out cold, and the whole town felt like it was holding its breath. I shot Caleb a lazy "you up?" text, but didn't wait around for a reply. He probably passed out with Xbox on again. The streets were dead quiet, just the hum of the engine and the shuffle of my Night Drives playlist echoing in the stillness. I didn't plan on going far, just a cruise down Briar Hollow Road, a skinny, 2-lane strip wrapped in pine trees that leaned in like they were keeping secrets. At the end of it sat Ravenwood Preserve. No campgrounds, no cabins, just winding trails and warning signs about poison ivy. Last time I'd been there was with Caleb and Jess, trading ghost stories and sneaking cheap beer from Caleb's dad's busted cooler. Felt like another lifetime now. This time it was just me. About 10 minutes in, the streetlights vanished. My high beams became the only thing separating me from complete blackness. I rolled the windows down. The air smelled sweet, honeysuckle and something else. Asphalt, maybe, still holding the day's heat. I was zoning out, just watching the painted lines whip past, when I reached the preserve's turnaround loop. That's when I saw it. A tree, medium-sized but thick, lay smack across the exit path, like it had been dropped there on purpose. The bark was fresh split, limbs scattered like bones. My heart sank. We'd had a brutal storm 2 nights back. Sirens, power outages, hell, even the neighbor's trampoline ended up in a field. I should have remembered that. I eased the car to a crawl, my headlights lighting up every inch of that damn tree. No getting over it, not in my beat-up Toyota. Shit, I muttered, shifting into reverse. My plan? Simple. Back onto the grass, turn around, head back the way I came. Who was gonna care if I did a little wrong way driving at 3 a.m.? No one was out here, except I forgot one thing. Summer storms meant summer mud. The second my back tires hit the grass, I felt it. Soft, slick, unforgiving. I tapped the gas. The wheels spun, slapped it into drive. Spun again, back into reverse. More spinning. Mud kicked up onto the windows. The rear end dipped, like the earth was trying to swallow my car whole. God damn it, I groaned, slamming my forehead gently against the wheel. My phone had 2 bars, thank God. I didn't even think. I called Mom. I knew if Dad picked up first, I'd never hear the end of it. She answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. Hello? Hey, it's me. Don't freak out, okay? I'm fine, but I need help. I gave her the whole story. The drive, the preserve, the mud, the tree. Silence on her end. Then a soft, frustrated sigh. Jesus, Issa, what the hell were you doing out there? I couldn't sleep, I said, quiet now. She exhaled again, long and slow. All right, I'll call a tow truck, sit tight. I'll call you back. You're probably going to be stuck there at least an hour, hour and a half, my mom warned. Just stay in the car, lock the doors. I will, I said. We hung up. I reached over and clicked the locks shut, each one thudding louder than it should have. That's when I saw them. Just past where my headlights faded into darkness, maybe 30 yards out, was a wide open field. I must have passed it a dozen times before and never really noticed it, but now it was lit up in the weirdest way. Dozens of tiny glints, eyes, deer, at least 30, maybe more, just standing there, grazing, heads lifting now and then to stare at me. The glow in their eyes from my headlights made it look unnatural, like someone had stuck reflective beads in their skulls. It was eerie, yeah, but also strangely beautiful, like a painting you didn't quite understand. I kept watching them, half hypnotized, switching between that and doom scrolling on my phone. I tried not to think about how far I was from anyone else, or what else might be out there in the woods beyond the deer. Finally, my phone buzzed. Mom. Tow truck guy is on his way. Could be 90 minutes. Sorry, sweetie. I groaned, but texted back a quick, thanks. There was nothing else to do. I reclined the seat and locked my phone. The night was quiet, too quiet, and thick with heat. I let my eyes shut. I don't know how long I was out. Maybe 45 minutes. But I woke up hard, heart thudding like I'd just been yanked out of cold water. It wasn't a nightmare that woke me. It was the feeling. The air had changed, heavier somehow. Like it wasn't air anymore, but something pressing against the car, watching me. And it wasn't the deer. I sat up too fast, disoriented. My phone had slipped between the seat and the console. I fished it out. Screen lit up the car's interior. 4:11 a.m., still dark, still quiet. The deer were still there, but something felt wrong. Off in a way I couldn't name. My gut twisted. I reached into the console and found my little pocket knife. It was dull, barely bigger than a thumb, but it was something. I flicked it open and held it in my lap. Just nerves, I whispered to myself. But the hairs on my arms were standing up like they knew better. And then I saw it. Not clearly at first, just a flicker of movement in the trees to the left of the field. A shadow. Tall. Thin. Still. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The deer didn't move, didn't bolt, didn't even seem to notice. but I noticed. I leaned forward, trying to see better. My headlights didn't quite reach that far, but I could make out a shape. It was human, kind of, but it wasn't moving. Then, slowly, it did. One step forward, then another, out from the trees. Not fast, not charging, just watching. My hand slapped the key into the ignition. I turned it. Nothing. No engine. Just a hollow click. I tried again. Click. "Oh, come on!" I hissed, panic flaring in my chest. The lights. I'd left the damn headlights on too long. Third try. The engine coughed, then roared to life. I slammed the gas. The tires spun. Mud flew. The back end dipped again. I screamed, punched the steering wheel. Tried again. This time the car jerked forward a few inches, enough traction to budge. I looked up. The figure was closer. Still walking. Still watching. I floored it, rocking the car back and forth, mud spraying across the windows. Finally, mercifully, the tires caught. The Camry leapt forward, bouncing onto pavement with a sickening jolt. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't even breathe until I was halfway to the main road. A few minutes later, I passed the tow truck heading in the opposite direction. I didn't slow down. Didn't wave. Just kept driving like hell was chasing me. When I pulled into my driveway, the sky was turning that weird, bruised blue color. I sat there in the car, engine off, staring at the windshield for a long time before going inside. I told my mom the tow guy never found me. I didn't sleep that whole day. That was 2 years ago. I've been back to Ravenwood since then, but never alone, and never after dark. I still don't know what I saw that night. Maybe it was just a hiker, someone restless like me, pulled out there by boredom and bad decisions. But I don't think so. Something in me, something primal, knows that whatever it wasn't lost. It was waiting. I wasn't supposed to leave that late. Originally, the plan was to hit the road by 10 a.m., maybe even earlier if loading went smooth. The company I worked for had been slowly relocating the last of its gear from our old site in Wyoming to the main office here in Indiana. Normally I flew, just a quick hop, meet some folks, sign off, and bounce. But sometimes we had bigger stuff. Things you couldn't just box up and ship. This was one of those times. I'd done the drive twice already, once in a Sprinter van and another time pulling an empty trailer. Both trips had been peaceful, in a weird way. That long stretch through Nebraska, flatlands and silence, gave me space to think. Space I didn't know I needed. So when the office asked for a volunteer to drive the last haul, a battered 20-foot box truck we'd snagged cheap from a warehouse liquidation, I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." I liked the quiet, liked being alone out there. Or I used to. That feeling was gone now. But I guess I should back up. The morning I was supposed to leave, everything went sideways. There was a delay with the printer, a massive industrial thing from the old office. It got held up at a shipping depot 2 towns over. Didn't roll in until after 2:30 p.m., and by the time we got it strapped down and secured in the back of the truck, it was already creeping past 4:00. I almost hit the road anyway. But if you've ever been stuck in rush hour traffic near Gary, Indiana, you know why I waited. I figured I'd grab dinner, let the worst of the traffic die off, and then head out around 5. Sometimes I wonder if that decision saved me or got me noticed. By the time I hit I-80 West, the sky was bleeding into twilight. That purple-orange bruise across the horizon always hit me different. The truck's cabin smelled faintly of old dust, diesel, and cracked vinyl. Everything inside rattled and creaked like it was one pothole away from falling apart. The radio barely worked, only catching stations if I angled the dial just right, and the AC only kicked in if I smacked the dash with my palm. But it moved, and I knew the route like muscle memory. The first couple hours were uneventful. Coffee, bathroom, some greasy drive-through burger I regretted halfway through Iowa. By the time the city lights had faded behind me and the radio hissed into static, I shut it off and settled into the hum of the road. My headlights cut through nothing but endless fields and skeletal trees. It was that lonely patch in northern Iowa, a 2-lane stretch that felt like it'd been forgotten by time. No gas stations, no cops, just wind and dark. I'd driven it before, but it always felt off. Not haunted exactly, just hollow. Like a place that swallowed things. People even. And nobody would ever know. Around 12:30 a.m., I pulled into a rest stop I'd used once or twice before. Nothing fancy, just a dim arc light buzzing overhead, a rusted vending machine humming by the bathrooms, and a couple concrete benches stained with bird crap. The only other vehicle was a pickup parked way down at the far end, backed in, no lights on. I didn't think much of it. I hit the restroom, splashed cold water on my face, trying to shake the fog building behind my eyes. Thought about crashing in the back of the truck for an hour or two, maybe stretch out on the cargo floor beside the printer. But something in my gut said no. That quiet little voice you learn not to ignore after a few weird roadside encounters. When I stepped back outside, my stomach dropped. The pickup? It was parked right next to me now, close enough to scrape my driver's side if I opened the door. I hadn't heard it move, hadn't seen headlights. A man stood between our vehicles. Thin, tall, late 40s, maybe early 50s. Wore jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and a ball cap pulled low over his eyes. Looked like every third guy you'd see at a gas station, but something about him. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there perfectly still like he'd been waiting. Like he knew I'd come out at that exact second, and I froze. "Hey," he said, real casual, like we were neighbors chatting over a fence. "That your truck?" I hesitated. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound tired or suspicious. He nodded, tilted his head just enough to glance at the back. "You having trouble with it or something? Saw you checking something earlier." I kept my voice flat. "Just taking a break?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That smile was mechanical, practiced. "Just wondering. Sometimes those old rigs get weird. Electrical quirks, you know? Lights, brakes." I gave him a tight-lipped nod and didn't answer. Just climbed into the cab and locked the doors as quick as I could. My gut twisted hard. Something about him, his stillness, the way he didn't blink, set off every internal alarm I had. He didn't follow, didn't knock or yell or move fast. He just stood there for a moment too long, head angled slightly toward my truck, like he was memorizing something. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back to his pickup. I didn't waste time. I threw it in drive and got out of there. The next stretch of highway was empty. A long, pitch-black ribbon cutting through nothing. No headlights behind me. No taillights ahead. Just the glow of the moon and my own lights eating up the dark. Every so often, the road signs flashed by in green blurs, and once in a while I caught a glint, eyes from some animal watching from the ditch. Then it happened. Every single light in the truck went out. Headlights dash, radio, even the dim glow from the AC buttons, gone. Instant total darkness. My first thought was electrical, battery, fuse, but the engine was still running. The hum was there. I tapped the brake. Nothing. No red glow in the mirror. Just black behind me. A void. I didn't panic right away. I pulled off to the shoulder slow, careful, blinking into the dark like it would help. My heart thudded like a drum in my throat. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, fighting the cold sweat building on my neck. Then, out of pure frustration, I slammed my palm against the dashboard. Everything snapped back on. Lights, gauges, the whisper of the AC, like it had never happened, like the truck had just blinked. But my stomach flipped. I'm not a superstitious guy, but I'm not a damn fool either. Something was wrong. The timing, the way it all cut out right after that guy mentioned electrical quirks. Why say something so specific? Why that? Unless he knew. I kept driving, eyes glued to the mirrors. Fear climbed from my gut into my throat like bile. I remembered a 24-hour gas station about 10 miles ahead, just past the county line. A town called Avery. I'd fueled up there before. It was familiar. It felt safe. I rolled into the station around 1:30 a.m., pulled up to the farthest pump, and jumped out. The air was crisp, almost metallic. I jammed the nozzle into the tank, heart still racing. Then I saw it. That same damn pickup. Same faded red paint. Same dent in the bumper. It pulled up on the road just outside the station, headlights off, engine idling low. The driver didn't get out. He just sat there, watching. A slow chill climbed my spine like a centipede. Didn't even finish pumping. Left the nozzle dangling. Walked, fast, toward the front doors of the store. Just as I was about to reach them, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the lot. 2 deputies inside, probably looking for coffee or killing time. I waved, tried to smile like I wasn't barely keeping my nerves from spilling out. "Evening," I said. My voice cracked a little. "Hey, quick question. Road west of here in good shape? Got a long haul, just want to make sure I'm not heading into any closures." The female deputy nodded. "Should be fine. Clear night." I turned my head slightly, motioning back toward the road. Just saw someone acting strange. That truck's been behind me since a rest stop. Same one just pulled up out front. Could be nothing, but felt off. The other deputy glanced down the road. The pickup peeled off, fast. No hesitation. Tires squealed, and it vanished into the night. They offered to escort me to the county line, but I said no. Told them I was probably just overtired, paranoid. They didn't argue. But the woman didn't look convinced, not fully. I got back in the truck. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the wheel with both just to steady them. I drove 20 more minutes in that fragile silence, still checking the mirror every few seconds. Then I saw it, a motel sign, glowing weakly off the side of the road. 2 stories. Looked half abandoned. I didn't care. I pulled in under the one working light, grabbed my bag and headed for the office. The night clerk barely looked up. I paid in cash, took the key, double-locked the room. I didn't sleep. I laid there, waiting for footsteps, for a knock, for a window to shatter. But the night passed. Nothing happened. And in the morning, under the bright heat of the sun, it all felt like a dream. Almost. When I got to the old office in Wyoming, I dropped off the keys, mentioned the lights cutting out during the drive. Nothing specific. Just a quick, truck's acting weird. They called me a few days later, said the mechanic didn't find a thing. Battery solid, wiring clean, no shorts, no signs of tampering. Everything was fine. But I knew better. That man at the rest stop, he did something. I don't know how. Maybe a device that temporarily cut power. Just long enough to make me pull over. Just long enough to get me alone in the dark. Maybe he was gonna rob me. Or worse. And maybe he's done it before. Maybe the next guy won't be lucky enough to find a cop. Or won't pull into a gas station. Or won't slam his fist against the dash at just the right moment. Sometimes I wonder how many people he's done this to. How many didn't make it? How many disappeared on that dark stretch of road? And most nights I still wonder, what was he waiting for? Because I think he had a plan. And I think next time, he'll finish it. It was supposed to be just a quick weekend escape, not some ghost story I'd still whisper about 35 years later, wondering if we were ever meant to make it out of that field at all. Back in the fall of 1987, I was stationed at Hawthorne Air Base, a mid-size Air Force installation clinging to the edge of Moran, Nebraska. The military had brought people from every forgotten corner of the country. But I'd found my people, 2 kindred souls who made those long shifts and bland chow hall meals bearable. My roommate Renee, sharp-tongued, fearless, and from the south side of Chicago, and Katie, a spitfire from a farming town in Indiana with an engine for a laugh and a car that rattled like a washing machine. We were young, just barely 20, holding on to our tiny slices of freedom like they were lifelines. Renee and I were both black girls from the city, used to sirens, shouting neighbors, the rumble of trains. Katie was white, all small-town stories and yes ma'ams, but somehow the three of us clicked. Maybe it was the stubbornness, maybe it was the way our names constantly got butchered, Tracy with a Y, me, Renee with double E, and Katie with an I. We'd laugh, calling ourselves the E-Sisters. Nobody ever spelled our names right, and we turned it into a bit, introducing ourselves like a comedy trio, spinning tales just to watch the puzzled looks people gave us. That weekend all we wanted was out of our uniforms, out of that gray base, out of chow lines and drills and the smell of bleach in the dorm halls. So we threw duffel bags into Katie's beat-up blue Cutlass Supreme and pointed it south toward Caraway, a real city across the Missouri line about 3 hours away. The plan? A movie, actual food, maybe some flirting, just dumb, harmless girl stuff. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon, and it was one of those golden autumn days where everything feels like a promise. Windows down, hair whipping around, the scent of dry cornfields and sun-warmed asphalt filling the car. We had Whitney Houston's So Emotional blasting like it was gospel, our voices hoarse from singing. Katie, ever the daredevil, had that lead foot slammed down, flying down Highway 75 at nearly 90. That's when the flashing lights appeared in the rear view, red and blue like some omen tearing through the perfect afternoon. Shit, Katie muttered, easing off the gas. Relax, just a ticket, probably. Renee and I went quiet. She sat up straighter, smoothing her hair with one hand while I tucked away the cassette case and wiped at a speck on the dash like it mattered. The cruiser stayed behind us for a moment before pulling up close. Dust kicked up on the shoulder as Katie brought the Cutlass to a slow stop. The world suddenly felt quieter. Even the music, now dialed down to a whisper, seemed eerie. He stepped out. A state trooper, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe mid-40s, but something about him felt off. His skin was pale like it never saw sunlight, and the mustache above his lip was so thick and unnatural, it almost looked drawn on. His boots were polished to a mirror shine, and he wore his sunglasses even though the sky was bleeding into dusk. He didn't greet us, didn't ask for Katie's license or registration, didn't even look at her. His eyes went past the steering wheel and locked straight onto me and Renee. His expression was blank, eerily unreadable. Before he finally spoke, his voice flat and sharp like a knife on bone. "You three, follow me. Don't try anything stupid or this won't end with just a ticket." Then he turned and walked calmly back to his cruiser. None of us spoke. Katie's hands trembled on the steering wheel. I felt Renee's fingers gripping my thigh like a vice. "What the hell?" Renee whispered, voice tight with something between fear and fury. Katie looked pale, dazed. "Why didn't he just... what did I even do?" But she turned the key anyway, the engine coughing to life, and pulled back onto the highway behind his patrol car. We followed in tense silence. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He veered suddenly onto an unmarked turnoff I hadn't even seen coming. No warning signs, just a battered wooden plank nailed to a fence post. Private road, no outlet. Every instinct in my body screamed, "This isn't right. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't a normal stop." But what were we going to do? He was a cop. We were 3 young women alone in an unfamiliar state, surrounded by nothing but empty sky and miles of corn. The pavement gave way to gravel. Then gravel became dirt. Cornfields rose up on both sides, stalks dry and tall, whispering in the wind like they were trying to warn us. The sun was sliding behind the trees, the sky a burning orange bruise. Nobody spoke anymore. The music was off. Our joy was gone. replaced by a gnawing, primal dread. He finally stopped in front of a sagging old barn tucked into a clearing. It looked abandoned, weathered wood, roof half caved in, except it wasn't. Because 5 men stepped out, all of them armed. They didn't shout, didn't bark orders, just stood there like they'd been waiting. One had a shotgun propped lazily against his shoulder. Another leaned on the frame of the barn, eyes like flint. One of them spat into the dirt. Another laughed, dry, low, and mean. Katie's hand hovered near the gear shift, knuckles pale, but she didn't move. The trooper walked back to our car and knocked on her window with one knuckle. "Step out. Now." Katie obeyed. Her knees buckled a bit as she got out, and I saw her shoulders shudder. He said something low to her, something we couldn't hear, then motioned toward his cruiser. She walked like she was sleepwalking. He opened the passenger door and she got in. Then he came to our side. To Renee. He didn't say a word. Just stood there, staring at us through the glass. Behind him, the men stayed still, watching, waiting, silent as stones but heavy with threat. I could feel their eyes on us, hot, hungry, inhuman. Renee's hand clamped around my arm. Her fingernails dug into my skin. Still, neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. Minutes passed. It felt like hours. Then Katie came running. She flung open the door, sobbing, her voice cracked and barely a whisper. "Don't say anything," she choked, climbing behind the wheel. Just hold on." The trooper was walking back, slow, deliberate. His boots crunched against the gravel, his face emotionless, as if none of this had weight. He leaned into Renee's window again. His voice had dropped into something colder. "That true?" he asked. "Y'all military?" Renee swallowed. "Yes, sir. We're stationed at Hawthorne." There was a beat, a long, slow, chilling beat. Then, without looking at us, "Get out of here, back to base. I see you again. It won't end like this." Katie didn't wait. She slammed the car into reverse and floored it. Dirt and husks sprayed up behind us as we tore out of that clearing. The men didn't move, didn't chase us, just stood like silent ghosts with shotguns watching us disappear. We didn't speak, not a word, not until Nebraska's welcome sign passed in a blur and the cutlass finally rolled onto the shoulder. Katie pulled over, hands glued to the wheel, shaking so badly the car rocked in place. "I thought we were gonna die," she sobbed. Renee and I reached for her, pulling her close, arms around each other like lifelines in a storm. Did he hurt you?" I asked, my voice barely more than breath. Katie shook her head. "No. But..." She paused, swallowed. "He asked me what I was doing with 2 ends, said we were probably in a stolen car." Renee flinched. "I tried to explain," Katie said, her voice breaking. "I gave him my military ID. And then he said if I wanted y'all to walk out of there alive." She couldn't finish. Her whole body curled inward and she broke down completely. Neither of us spoke. We couldn't. My throat burned. Renee covered her mouth, tears streaking down her face. It hit us right there, on the side of the road in the dark. What almost happened and what didn't, only because of a thin, laminated rectangle with her name on it. A military ID. We sat there a long time, crying, holding each other, trying to make sense of something that had no shape, no reason. We never told anyone, never reported it, didn't say a word on base. Who would believe 3 teenage girls over a state trooper in the middle of nowhere? We told ourselves to forget it, move on, let it go. But I never did. Because somewhere out there in Missouri, maybe not too far from that collapsing barn, are others. Others who weren't so lucky,